But before we get into the hot topic of today of playing some Danganronpa, it is Canada Day! Which, usually it would be a little nicer to celebrate. However, we've got some shit that I want to discuss that I think is important because I don't want it to be ignored, and I don't want people to not be thinking about it, or at least not keep it in mind during this holiday season, because it is really sad.
Said, hello, I will be here in less than an hour. I am teaching data structures.
Oh man, no worries, man. Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
I know that you'll join when you can.
Said, see.
So, you know, I'm not too worried about it. But yes, hello! So I am going to be reading an article to you to start from CTV News, and I'm only mentioning this because, again, I consider it to be really important, especially since it's Canada Day, and there's a lot of drama. Well, not really, I don't want to say drama because I don't consider it drama. I more consider it to be really, like, just important stuff that's happening in my country. So I believe the person who wrote this is called Stephanie Taylor. And the article is called No Guarantees of PayPal Apology for Residential Schools After Vatican Trip, AFN. So this is in relation to all of the First Nations stuff that has been in the news in regards to my country lately, because we are, well, specifically the Assembly of First Nations is wanting to get an apology from the Catholic Church in regards to their involvement with the residential schools and all of the unmarked graves and children's deaths that have happened. And I did want to bring this up because I don't want to ignore it, and I mean, it's kind of fitting in regards to the game that we're playing on Canada Day. So, like I said, I'm just going to read this out to you just so that you can keep this in mind and maybe try and, like, petition our government or something to essentially get something out of this, because this is ridiculous that this is even this is even a necessary step that needs to be taken. But it says here that the Assembly of First Nations National Chief Perry Bellegarde says there are no guarantees on Indigenous delegation traveling to the Vatican will lead to Pope Francis apologizing in Canada for the Catholic Church's role in residential schools, but they must try. Bellegarde confirmed AFN representatives will join Métis and Inuit leaders making the trip in late December to seek a PayPal apology. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report into the residential school system, released in 2015, called for the Pope to come to Canada to apologize to survivors as well as their families and communities for the abuses faced by Indigenous children. It asked for that to happen within 1 year of the report's release and to be similar to the papal apology delivered to victims in Ireland that suffered different abuses through the Catholic Church. And of course, this never happened because religious people are never wanting to admit to their faults, apparently, or at least nobody in, like, the higher ranks of religious things. Like, it's so disappointing to me. Like, you preach about how you want people to be good and all of the things that you should be doing to be good, and yet none of this is even being applied even by the highest of people in their respective religion, which is just disgusting to me.
Hyperspatial artist said, not about being good. Hyperspatial artist said, but. Hyperspatial artist said, realizing you were wrong. Hyperspatial artist said, sin.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, again, like, still, I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna be practicing what you preach, you should be apologizing for and, like, doing something actively to help the First Nations that you have harmed. But, you know, outrage over the lack of an apology has been reaching new heights since First Nations in Saskatchewan and British Columbia reported ground-penetrating radar detected hundreds of unmarked graves at former school sites. Tiny shoes and teddy bears have been laid out in memorials across the country by people grieving the Indigenous children who died at residential schools and the suffering caused to their families back home who didn't know what happened. Bellegarde says the federal government and Catholic Church are complicit in the operation of these schools, where around 150,000, let me repeat that, 150,000 1,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children were sent. And that's only an estimate. That's only an estimate of how many were sent to these residential schools. And this has been going on for a really long time, okay? Like, a lot of these residential schools didn't get closed until after I was already born. And I was born in the year 1995. So this has been going on for a lot longer and is a lot more recent than people would like to admit. The Anglican Church has apologized. The Presbyterian Church has apologized. Union Church has apologized, said Bellegarde at a virtual news conference Wednesday. This is really part of truth and part of the healing and reconciliation process for survivors to hear the apology from the highest position within the Roman Catholic Church, which is the Pope. He says securing the meeting took a lot of planning, and it will be their chance to invite Pope Francis back to Canada with the hope he delivers an apology, but they have no assurances he will accept. Even if the Pope does make the trip from the Vatican, nobody knows what words will come from his mind, heart, and spirit, Bellegarde said. There are no guarantees of any kind of apology, he said. There's no guarantee he'll even come back to Canada, but we have to make the attempt, and we have to seize the opportunity. And I believe the Spirit will move, and I think things will happen in a good way. That's my belief, and that's my hope, and that's my prayer. The Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops has said Pope Francis will meet with the leaders to foster meaningful encounters of dialogue and healing. Whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. The bishop said in a statement he wants to express his heartfelt closeness, address the impact of colonization and the role of the church in the residential school system, in the hopes of responding to the suffering of Indigenous peoples and the ongoing effects of integrational trauma. Which, I mean, if he really wanted to do that, he would have done that back in 2015 or 2016 when he was first told to do so. But, you know, we're just gonna forget that. They didn't say whether the Pope will offer an apology, because, you know, they can't guarantee it. Isn't that just fucking lovely? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who himself is Catholic, said he believes the church is reflecting on its next steps and how it should respond to both its Indigenous and non-Indigenous followers like him, who are wondering and hoping that our church is going to step up and recognize its role, its responsibility, and its continued need to do more. That's what people are expecting. Bellegarde said another outstanding issue remains $25 million. I repeat, $25 million in compensation is owed by the Catholic Church to residential school survivors. But they're probably not gonna do that, because when does the Vatican ever want to give money to anybody who actually fucking needs it, right? But says the focus in December will be on the apology. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, which represents 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan, said the church agreed to raise the funds as part of the Indian Residential School Survivor Agreement, yet has fallen far short. I want to hear you rant, but gotta go. That's okay. You'll catch it later, I'm sure. If they can't raise it in their houses of worship here, it should come from the richest organization in the world, the Vatican, Chief Bobby Cameron said in a statement. This report by the Canadian Press was first published on June 30th, 2021. So, like, basically yesterday. And, like, there isn't any more information so far that I'm aware of in regards to that. But yeah, basically, I wanted to highlight the fact that First Nations deserve that $25 million, and they deserve that fucking apology from the Catholic Church, from the Pope, from everyone who is complicit and involved. It is absolutely ridiculous that my country and the religions that are in my country have not properly compensated or apologized for how much generational damage they have done to the First Nations community. And I am so upset about it. Like, if I go on my Twitter profile right now, you will still see to this day that the pinned tweet there is from some articles about how First Nations have been treated in my country. Like, one of it is a Global News article, and I quote, But so far, the responses from Catholic Church representatives have ranged from regional apologies to a complete lack of acknowledgement of the Church's role in the system. And then I said, Catholics and Christians alike are quick to judge the sins of others, and yet they try to hide their own. Which is really frustrating to me. Like, how fucking dare you be on your high horse and criticize everybody else, but as soon as it comes to you and the things that you have done, you can't take accountability for shit. Like, okay. And then I continued. I repeat, one Catholic leader, not even the Pope, just an archbishop, had enough sense to say the Church needs to acknowledge their crimes and do better. But yet Pope Francis can't do the same. Isn't that just great leadership? Isn't it? And then I included an article from The Guardian that says, on top of all that, the Canadian government isn't providing fresh, clean water to First Nations. Which is true, and has been an ongoing issue for decades. Let me repeat. Decades! How is it that in a country like mine, that I am so very proud of, and I am so very happy to be living in and be a citizen of, where people who have been here longer than my colonial ass are not getting fresh water in the place that has the most fresh water in the entire world? Like, what the fuck? That is absolute bullshit. So, in honor of that, I say, Happy Canada Day. Support literally every fucking charity you see that has anything to do with First Nations people on this day, because I think that is the only way to properly celebrate. If I could donate money, I would. I can't right now. I'm not in a financial position to do so, but if you can, please donate to a First Nations charity or a First Nations organization. I beg of you. This Canada Day, we could really deserve some kind of positivity on that front. So if you're watching this stream, please donate to a First Nations organization or charity. I really believe in this, and I really want some positive change to come out of this. I really want Pope Francis to apologize and do some really good shit for a change in regards to First Nations. So, yeah. I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and we're gonna play a fucking game. Because I'm gonna get way too mad about this if I don't.